So guys, it's that time of the week again, back for our championship score predictions. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Absolutely loads to discuss in today's video. Obviously, we had all the midweek action going on, which we'll be talking about throughout the video, and of course, our score predictions. So do get them in the comments down below and get yourself onto the prediction leaderboard. Before we do jump into anything though, let's give a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. If you're not already, make sure to check out the OneFootball app, link down below. Really handy to have, especially at this stage of the season where things are so close in the championship, both at the top and bottom. You can get live updates to your phone whenever a goal goes in, so you can stay on top of all the other sides that are playing around you, and you can also read up on the opposition you're playing in a little bit more detail. Check out some of their more individual stats of their key players and things like that. It's how I stay on top of everything. I'd recommend you do the same. And before we do jump into my score predictions, let's check out the prediction leaderboard. And it was an absolutely massive midweek in terms of some of the scores that you guys were getting. So as you can see to the side of me, still the same leader in the prediction league, but it's got a whole lot closer around the top. We've seen people getting like 20s this game week. J-Matt moving up to third with 21 points this game week. Absolutely huge scores there. As ever, League One is still ridiculously close, only 3 points separating the top from bottom at the moment. But finally, after many weeks of me battling it out in non-league, I've at last made it into League Two. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. So I'm currently 11th in League Two. The comeback is on, and my focus is to get in that main prediction league by the end of the season. But I currently sit 11th in League Two with 17 points this game week, so a pretty big one from me. You can see behind me, Kieran Ryan there picking up 22 points. So a lot of big score lines. Fair play to everyone that got a result correct. But without any further ado, let's jump into my score predictions. So let's start out with tonight's game. It's quite an interesting one. We've got Watford going up against Derby. Both teams playing pretty well at the moment. Obviously Watford coming off the back of that 6-0 win at the weekend, beat my side North End in midweek. By no means was it a classic. Preston played to limit Watford in that game, and I thought we did it alright, to be fair. You know, Watford didn't have all too many clear-cut chances, but the penalty in the end being the difference between the two sides. That's so many penalties for Watford this season, but yeah, just really good trickery in and around the box. Derby, I saw an interesting stat about Wayne Rooney actually. Since he's come into the job, only Watford and Brentford have picked up more points than they have in the Championship, so there has been a clear upturn in form. Obviously, their game in midweek, by no means was it the prettiest performance. It was that 2-1 win over Wycombe where, I mean, the home side was probably maybe a little bit unlucky not to get something from that game, but nevertheless, Derby winning matches while not playing well, something that we couldn't really say about them at the start of the season. And traditionally, these are the sort of games that Derby have showed up for so far. Against those top 6 opposition, they do tend to raise their game. So it's a tough one to predict. Watford obviously still very strong at home, still got the best home record in the league, but I wouldn't be all too surprised to maybe see Derby throw a spanner in the works here. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1. I don't think there'll be all too much in this one goal separating it either way perhaps, but yeah, I'm going to sit on the fence for that one first of all. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's saying it'll be 1-0 Watford. Should be an interesting watch nonetheless. Next up, let's go for Coventry up against Brentford. Quite an intriguing game, both at the top and bottom of the Championship. Now, Coventry, who are without a win in their last 5 matches, have fallen on a few tougher times recently. It has been a tough fixture running for them, and it doesn't get much easier in the next couple of games facing Brentford and Swansea. So there is the real possibility that this Coventry side could slip into the bottom 3. It's then all about their mental strength if they can climb their way back out of there, because I still back the quality that they have within that squad. They are also going up against this Brentford squad who is having a bit of a wobble themselves at the moment, losing their last 2 matches. By all means, at half-time against QPR in midweek, things were going their way. You know, they were 1-0 up, Ivan Toney putting them in front. But in that second half, when QPR looked to be a little bit more direct with them throwing a few more balls into the box, it was another defeat in the end. So 0 points from their last 2 matches. I think we're all sort of waiting to see how long this slump will actually last for Brentford, because, you know, were they to lose this game, that's a hell of a lot of ground they're losing there on the likes of Swansea and Norwich. I think that with the way that Coventry's confidence might be a bit damaged at the moment, I'm going to back Brentford to bounce back this time 2-1. But if they don't, things could get very interesting around the top. I'm going to go 2-1 Brentford. FIFA's going to go 2-0 Coventry. Next up, let's then go to Ashton Gate. We've got Bristol City going up against Barnsley. Barnsley, a side who's really playing with a bit of spark about them at the moment. And I feel like their last 2 results, especially against 2 good teams in the Championship, you know, beating Brentford and then followed that up in midweek by getting their way past Blackburn. Still, like we mentioned in the last video, a bit bit of a dark horse for promotion, maybe, certainly for making the top 6. Ishmael there is doing an absolutely splendid job, and Colton Morris really seems to be the informed man for them. It was a goal and an assist for him in midweek, bouncing off the back of that goal against Brentford at the weekend. They're going up against this Bristol City side, who we've struggled to find any sort of positives for lately, to be honest with you. I mean, they failed to score in 4 out of their last 5 championship matches and have been conceding a whole bunch of goals. Obviously that 6-0 last weekend won't have done them any favours. Dean Holden has now departed, so the question begs if they get a bit of a bounce off the back of that with an interim coming in for the time being. And then Bristol City fans, I'm interested to know from you guys who you actually realistically think it is going to be brought in to see you guys out for the rest of the season. For a score prediction here, I think I've got to be back in Barnsley with the sort of way they're playing at the moment. I'm going to go 2-1 to the away side, with FIFA saying it'll be a 1-1 draw. Next up, let's then go for Cardiff up against Preston. Now Preston, I mean, we've always been a bit of a tricky side to predict, haven't we? We've been pretty low scoring in all of our games recently. 4 out of our last 6 championship matches have finished with 1 goal or less in them. This is another one where I don't feel like it's going to be a complete goal fest, to be honest with you. Our game in midweek against Watford was, I didn't think we were all too bad, to be honest. We were pretty uninspiring going forward, but defensively I thought we were pretty organised. In the end we just lost it because we gave away a bit of a cheap penalty. Cardiff, riding high on confidence at the moment, doing very well under Mick McCarthy. They'll still have ambitions of getting into the top 6 come the end of this season. It was another win for them in midweek, obviously. Kiefer Moore banging in the goals at the moment, and Harry Wilson, another player who really seems to be coming into his own in the second half of the season. For a score prediction, I wouldn't be surprised to see this one being 1 goal either way. I think the first goal, like it has been with a lot of North End games lately, will be quite important. I think Cardiff may edge this one with a bit more confidence they're playing with at the moment. I'm going to go 1-0 Cardiff, and FIFA's going to agree with that. If Preston turn up for this one with a similar performance like we played against Blackburn, where we're, you know, pressing from the front, really high intensity, anything's possible. But at this point in time, you probably just give the edge to Cardiff, so I'll go 1-0. Next up, let's go for Huddersfield up against Swansea. Now, Huddersfield, I think, find themselves in a whole world of trouble. Like we spoke about quite in detail on yesterday's video, someone commented actually, they've lost 23 points from winning positions this season, Huddersfield, which is an absolutely baffling stat. More than anything, surely that shows a bit of mental weakness and a lack of belief to actually hold on to these winning positions. And a side who I think has capitalised on quite a few of these opportunities so far this season has been Swansea. I think they've done well, while Brentford have slightly tailed off recently. Obviously, it was another win for them in midweek. By no means was it the most convincing of 3 points against Forest, but 3 points nonetheless. You know, it was Forest who were knocking on the door for quite a bit of that one, but Connor Roberts with the late winner in that game, and put Swansea in a really good position, you have to say, with 2 games in hand on the teams above them. For this game, I'd be surprised if it went any other way but Swansea, really. Obviously, the Championship's unpredictable and anything can happen, but off the form book, I'm going 2-0 Swansea in this game, with FIFA saying it'll be 1-0 Huddersfield. After that, we're going to the Den. We've got Millwall going up against Wycombe. Now, Millwall's recent record against sides in the bottom 3 has been very good. They beat Birmingham in midweek 2-0, had no sort of concerns in that game. Obviously, Birmingham pretty much gifted them the opening goal, but Jed Wallace showed a good amount of perseverance to latch onto that loose ball, and they also put 4 goals past Sheffield Wednesday not too long ago. Now, Wycombe have been, I mean, I thought they got pretty unlucky in midweek, really, with a couple of decisions, key ones at that went against them in that game against Derby, and ultimately, those are the sort of games that you need a bit of luck to fall your way on if they were to get out of this current situation. Millwall have turned their season around, credit to Go out for that recently. They're now unbeaten in their last 7 matches, have been putting more teams away at the Den. That was our real criticism of Millwall at the start of the season, that they just weren't winning enough home matches. They've started to slowly turn that around. I think they probably get through this game. Don't get me wrong, Wycombe can be a bit of a tricky customer. We saw that from their comeback against Huddersfield, but I think that Millwall right now are being a lot more efficient than they were a couple months ago. So I'm going to go 2-1 Millwall in this game, with Thief saying it'll be 2-0 Millwall. Next up, let's then go to Carrow Road, Norwich up against Rotherham. Now, by all accounts, it's been a good couple of weeks for Norwich, winning back-to-back games in the Championship, and with Brentford slightly dropping off recently, they managed to solidify their place back at the top of the Championship. Now, this one potentially a bit of a tricky game. I thought that Rotherham got maybe a little bit unlucky in midweek, that 1-0 loss against Bournemouth. They actually had some decent chances going forward, but Begovic very much on form for that one. On another day, they could have got a point. Now, Now, Norwich playing with a lot of confidence at this point in time. The more I see of that forward three, the more I'm convinced by them. I know that Todd Cantwell missed a bit of an easy chance in midweek, but even so, playing some really fluid stuff. They got in behind that Coventry backline quite a few times actually, and yeah, that link-up play between Buendia and Timu Pukki is back for absolutely everyone to see. I think that if Norwich score early on in this game especially, they'll probably get through this one. Rotherham, don't get me wrong, can make things difficult for the opposition. I think they might even get a goal in this one as well. But ultimately, I think that Norwich's quality probably shows through. I'm going to go 3-1 to the home side here, with Thief saying it'll be 2-0 Norwich. Next up, we're going to the City Ground. We've got Nottingham Forest going up against Blackburn. Blackburn definitely a side who we've seen an obvious tail off in their form recently. I had some interesting conversations with some Blackburn fans in the comments of yesterday's video, actually, speaking about Tony Mowbray, because, I mean, by no means has this season been a disaster, but could they have gone that one step further into the top six with the sort of quality that's in that squad? Maybe, is the sort of feeling I think amongst a lot of people at the moment now. Nottingham Forest actually doing fairly well recently. I thought they got really unlucky in midweek to lose against Swansea. Quite late on in that game they had, I mean, they were knocking on the door for quite a lot of it actually in terms of some of the chances they were creating moving forward. It was a bit more of a forward thinking game compared to the one they had against Bournemouth, where they were just quite resolute defensively and happy to pick up the point in that one. I think they'll be a little bit more adventurous in this game against Blackburn as well. With Blackburn showing a few more cracks defensively, you'd anticipate Forest to go for this one a little bit more, similar to how they did in that game against Wycombe, where they were absolutely fantastic, scored 3 goals in that one. With Blackburn not playing with all too much confidence, I'm going to back Forest for this one. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side, with FIFA agreeing with me on that one. Next up, let's then go for QPR up against Bournemouth. Now, QPR are absolutely flying in the Championship at the moment, winning 5 of their last 6 matches. Warburton's really managed to turn it around there, so fair play to him. They're going up against a bit of a tricky side to predict at the moment in Bournemouth, because since Jonathan Woodgate has come in and he's sort of been their caretaker manager over the past few games, he's steadied the ship, and I think in terms of results there's been an upwards trend, but in terms of watching Bournemouth and sort of like the eye test on them, they're still not quite there for me in terms of their level of performance compared to some of the other top 6 sides, but they're definitely turning the corner and starting to head in the right direction, but by no means are they the finished article yet. Obviously that game they did win in midweek, actually quite a nice goal scored by Billing, nice build up from the back. They're still missing that little bit more of a killer instinct though to really finish off these games. Obviously last time at the weekend it was a bit of a frustrating, bit of a slow performance in that goalless draw, and they'll come up against a QPR side who will look to attack them in this game, so it'll be interesting to see if their defence can stand strong. I'm edging towards QPR in this one, I think. I'm going to go 2-1 to the home side and back them to continue this impressive run. Thief has gone for a 1-1 draw. Should be an interesting one for Bournemouth. Next up then, we got Reading going up against Middlesbrough. Now, Reading getting back to winning ways in midweek, having failed to win any of their previous 3. It was a good performance. They really came alive, especially in those forward areas. Lucas João once again at the centre of things for this Reading squad. His goal was actually really impressive, how he manages to hold off a couple of Russian City defenders with his strength, and like he has done all season, has that composure in front of goal. Now, Middlesbrough might be a bit of an awkward game. Obviously, they've been a little bit up and down recently with their levels, but they did win in midweek 2-1 against Huddersfield, coming back from behind to win that game. And it was actually a lovely goal, the equaliser, scored by Duncan Watmore. Lovely solo effort, dribbles around a couple of people. Definitely worth watching if you've not already seen that goal. Now, Middlesbrough can be quite resolute in these sort of games. Obviously, we saw them get a good point away at Norwich a couple of weeks ago when they were defensively brilliant. I think they could cause some similar frustrations for this Reading side. I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 and for these two to cancel each other out, with Thief saying it'll be 2-0 Reading. Next up then, to potentially each side's biggest game of the season so far. We've got Sheffield Wednesday going up against Birmingham. Should either side lose this game, that's a really damning result for the rest of the season. Now, I think a lot of people will probably be favouring Sheffield Wednesday for this one, giving them the slight advantage, given that their home form at Hillsborough recently has actually been very impressive. Obviously, they did lose in midweek. I predicted that one against Stoke to be a bit of a tight one. Not by no means was it a classic in terms of the neutral watching it, but of course it would be Stephen Fletcher, the former Wednesday player, to pop up with the winner. But going back to their home record, they've won their last 5 matches at Hillsborough, and in that time have only conceded 1 goal. So keeping things watertight at the back against the Birmingham side, who just aren't scoring a lot of goals at the moment. They failed to score in 4 out of their last 6 matches. It was another really poor performance in midweek, losing against Millwall. I mean, they gifted them the first goal, that one to Jed Wallace. It was criminal defending. You see Aitor Karanka coming out at the end of his matches, and just really uninspiring stuff in here from Birmingham, both on and off the pitch at the moment. And I think for that reason I've got to be edging Wednesday for this game. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side. I don't think there'll be all too many goals in it, but I think Wednesday may just have the better of it. I'm going to go 1-0 Wednesday. FIFA said it'll be a 1-1 draw. If Birmingham lose that game, it's a real tough way back for them from there. And then to wrap up today's video, we got Stoke going up against Luton. That was a good win for Stoke in midweek. Stephen Fletcher with another goal. He's been one of the few Stoke players who has been chipping in with goals recently. If it's not him or Powell scoring, no one else has really stepped up, and it's been probably one of the contributing factors to why the Stoke games recently have been just so tight. I think you can make a similar argument for Luton recently as well. Their games have always been very tight, usually decided by 1 goal or 2. Obviously, they did lose that one in midweek against Cardiff. I wouldn't back against a draw in this one once again, although Luton have been a little bit more up and down in terms of their form, where they've either been on either receiving end of a tight game, whereas Stoke have been quite happy to draw matches lately. But that win against Wednesday could kickstart them for the second half of the season. I'm just going to edge Stoke for this one, I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side, with FIFA saying it'll be a goalless draw. But guys, there we have it. There are all my championship score predictions for I see happening over this weekend. So do get your guys' score predictions in the comments down below and get yourself onto that prediction leaderboard. It's so close at the moment, and like I always say, beneath League 2 we got loads of people who are just a couple of points off there, so make sure to keep chipping away at those score predictions. But apart from that, guys, that will wrap it up for today. So if you did go on to enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, and please do subscribe for a bit of regular championship content. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.